Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. It's all in unison. The hour of convening has arrived. The Senate will come to order. I'd ask that all unauthorized persons exit the chamber. Chair would like to recognize his good friend from the 53rd.
Indeed. Mr. President, it is a busy day for the members of the Senate, but we're here to work for the people of Georgia. A moment in history, 1935, Governor Gene Talmadge signed a joint resolution of the General Assembly requiring that every teacher in the public school system, college, universities of Georgia to sign an oath of allegiance to the state of Georgia, United States of America. Does that still happen? And also, a favorite day of mine and the man from Osceola and Popeye the Sailor Man, it's National Spinach Day. The journal's been read and found to be correct.
You seem to be very close from the senator from Osceola. You talk about him quite often. He says the same about you. Is there objection to dispensing with the reading of the journal? Hearing none, the reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills and resolutions, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. Mr. Secretary, first reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions, please.
Senate Bill 264 by Senator Harrell of the 40th. The bill will be titled an act amending, revising, superseding, and consolidating the laws relating to the governing authority of DeKalb County and creating a chairman of
State and local government.
Senate Bill 265 by Senator Jones of the 25th. The bill will be titled an act amending, providing supplements to the salaries of the judges of the Superior
State
Court.
and local government.
Senate Bill 266 by Senator Moles of the 53rd and others. The bill will be titled an act to amend Part 5 of Article 3 of Chapter 5 of Title 12 of the OCGA relating to public water systems.
Government oversight.
Senate Resolution 451 by Senator Stone of the 23rd, a resolution honoring Mr. R. Wayne Crockett and dedicating a road in his memory for other purposes.
Transportation.
Senate Resolution 452 by Senator Jones of the 10th and others, a resolution creating the Senate Study Committee on the Financial Efficiency Star Rating and for other purposes.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 454 by Senator Payne of the 54th and others, a resolution urging Georgia's congressional delegation in the United States Congress to amend the Controlled Substances Act of 1970 so as to authorize the study of medical marijuana in Georgia and all other states and for other purposes.
Regulated industries.
Senate Resolution 455 by Senator C of the 34th, a resolution creating the Senate Study Committee on Adult Changing Stations in commercial public facilities and for other purposes.
Rules.
Mr. President, that concludes the order.
First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions, please.
House Bill 631 by Representative Holmes of the 129th and others, the bill will be titled an act amending an act providing that certain costs in certain criminal cases and
State and local government.
House Bill 632 by Representative Jaspers of the 11th, the bill will be titled an act amending an act to reconstitute the Pickens County Board of
State and local government.
House Bill 633 by Representative Williamson of the 115th, the bill will be titled an act amending an act to reincorporate the city of Monroe. And
State and local government.
House Bill 635 by Representative Cannon of the 58th and others, the bill will be titled an act to provide for a new homestead exemption from City of Atlanta ad valorem taxes for NIPS.
State and local government.
House Bill 637 by Representative Hawkins of the 27th and others, the bill will be titled an act to create the Lula Development Authority to provide a short title to provide definitions.
State and local government. House
Bill 640 by Representative Corbett of the 174th and others, the bill will be titled an act amending an act creating the State Court of Ware County, formerly the City Court of
State and local government.
Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Secretary will now read reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, Senate Committee on Education and Youth has had our consideration of following legislation instructing the board to send back to the Senate for recommendation. House Bill 12 do pass, Senate Resolution 64 do pass, Senator Martin of the 9th. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Finance has had our consideration of following legislation instructing the board to send back to the Senate for recommendation. House Bill 540 do pass by substitute, House Bill 321 do pass by substitute, House Bill 224 do pass by substitute, Senator Hofstadter 52nd. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Health and Human Services has had our consideration of final legislation instructing the board to send back to the Senate for recommendation. House Bill 551 do pass, House Bill 345 do pass by substitute, House Bill 187 do pass, House Bill 233 do pass by substitute, Senator Watson the first. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Judiciary has had our consideration of final legislation instructing the board to send back to the Senate for recommendation. House Bill 79 do pass by substitute, House Bill 91 do pass, House Bill 118 do pass by substitute, House Bill 296 do pass, House Bill 353 do pass by substitute, Senator Stone of the 23rd. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Public Safety has had our consideration of final legislation instructing the report to send back to the Senate for recommendation. House Bill 342 do pass by substitute, House Bill 454 do pass by substitute, Senator Albers of the 56th. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Rules has had our consideration of final legislation or send back to Senate for recommendation. Pursuant to Senate Rule 2-1.10C, the Committee on Rules recommends the following legislation do pass by substitute. House Bill 85 do pass by sub, House Bill 264 do pass by substitute, and House Bill 446 do pass by substitute. Senator Moles the 53rd. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Rules has had a consideration following legislation instructing board send back to the Senate with recommendation. Senate Resolution 153 do pass. Senate Resolution 220 do pass. Senate Resolution 288 do pass. Senate Resolution 304 do pass. Senate Resolution 348 do pass. Senate Resolution 353 do pass. Senate Resolution 365 do pass. Senate Resolution 366 do pass. Senate Resolution 371 do pass. Senate Resolution 431 do pass. Senate Resolution 432 do pass. Senate Resolution 442 do pass. Senator Moles, the 53rd. And Mr. President, Senate Committee on State and Local Government Operations has had a consideration following legislation back to the Senate for recommendation. Senate Bill 242 do pass. Senate Bill 247 do pass. Senate Bill 252 pass by substitute. Senate Bill 252 do pass. Senate Bill 253 do pass. Senate Bill 254 do pass. Senate Bill 255 do pass. Senate Bill 257 do pass. Senate House Bill 120 do pass. House Bill 597 do pass. House Bill 600 do pass by substitute. House Bill 358 do pass. House Bill 596 do pass. House Bill 571 do pass. House Bill 572 do pass. House Bill 584 do pass. House Bill 595 do pass. House Bill 601 do pass. House Bill 602 do pass. House Bill 603 do pass. House Bill 608 do pass. And House Bill 610 do pass. Semi-Senator Kirk of the 13th. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Secretary will now read bills and resolutions for the second time.
Senate Resolution 64 by Senator Untitled the 45th and others. Georgia High School Association add the 4x800 meter relay to the state track meet. Urge Senate Resolution 87 by Senator Parent of the 42nd and others. Senate Study Committee on Digital Education and Screen Time in Georgia Public Schools create. Senate Resolution 153 by Senator Jones the 22nd and others. Senate Study Committee on Revising Voting Rights for Nonviolent Felony Offenders create. Senate Resolution 220 by Senator Thompson of the 14th and others. Jerusalem as capital of Israel recognized. Senate Resolution 222 by Senator Cowser of the 46th and others. Taiwan commend. Senate Resolution 263 by Senator Moles, the 53rd and others. Senate Emergency Medical Services Study Committee create. Senate Resolution 288 by Senator Albers, the 56th and others. Senate Consolidation of State Fire Safety Services Study Committee creates. Senate Resolution 304 by Senator Thompson, the 14th and others. Senate Athletic Association Study Committee create. Senate Resolution 318 by Senator Beach of the 21st and others. Senate Commission on Freight Innovation and Logistics create. Senate Resolution 328 by Senator Beach, the 21st and others. Senate Parking and Vehicle Immobilization Study Committee create. Senate Resolution 341 by Senator Beach, the 21st and others. United States Congress oppose the Green New Deal. Urge. Senate Resolution 348 by Senator Thompson, the 14th and others. Senate Freedom from Property Taxes Study Committee creates. Senate Resolution 353 by Senator Jones of the 10th and others. Senate Study Committee on Community Schools creates. Senate Resolution 365 by Senator Ligon of the 3rd and others. Trump President Donald J. commend. Senate Resolution 366 by Senator Anderson, the 43rd. Senate Passenger Vehicle Safety Belt Study Committee create. Senate Resolution 371 by Senator Kirk of the 13th and others. Senate Protections from Sexual Predators Study Committee creates. Senate Resolution 431 by Senator James of the 35th and others. Senate Reducing Waste in Healthcare Study Committee create. Senate Resolution 432 by Senator James of the 35th and others. Human Trafficking, Transport in and around Metro Atlanta, implement recognizable brand, resolve the issues. Senate Resolution 433 by Senator Gooch of the 51st and others. Senate Reducing Georgia's Cost of Doing Business Study Committee create. Senate Resolution 442 by Senator Walker of the 20th and others. Senate Study Committee on creating a Georgia Agricultural Marketing Authority create. House Bill 12 by Representative Williamson, the 145th and others. Quality Basic Education Act post sign containing telephone number to receive reports of child abuse require every public school. House Bill 79 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd and others. Blind Persons Child Custody Matters provisions. House Bill 91 by Representative Welch of the 110th and others. Hospitals and healthcare facilities. Federal Bureau of Investigation to retain fingerprints when an agency or entity is participating in the Georgia Bureau of Investigations program. Allow. House Bill 118 by Representative Morris of the 26th and others. Crimes and Offenses, Transmitting a False Alarm, Revise Offenses. House Bill 187 by Representative Dempsey, the 13th, and others. Community Health Department of pilot program to provide coverage for the treatment and management of obesity and related conditions. Provide. House Bill 224 by Representative Williamson, the 115th, and others. Income tax. Credit for new purchases and acquisitions of qualified investment property shall be earnable for mining and mining facilities and allowed against the taxpayer's payroll with the holding provide. House Bill 233 by Representative Knight, the 130th, and others. Pharmacy Anti-Steering and Transparency Act and Act. House Bill 296 by Representative Hawkins, the 27th, and others. Superior Court of Hall County, Northeastern Circuit, revised term of court. House Bill 321 by Representative Lott of the 122nd and others. Health Hospital Medicaid Financing Program extends sunset provision. House Bill 342 by Representative Dollar of the 45th and others. Motor vehicles, issuance of a traffic citation to a vehicle owner in lieu of the individual operating the motor vehicle in certain instances provide. House Bill 345 by Representative Cooper, the 43rd, and others. Penal institutions, pregnant female inmates or female inmate who is in the immediate postpartum period provide. Prohibited practices, House Bill 353 by Representative Carpenter, the 4th, and others. Insurance, create the crime of staging motor vehicle collisions, House Bill 454 by Representative Tanner, the 9th, and others. Motor vehicles, operation of motorized mobility devices provide. House Bill 540 by Representative Rhodes of the 120th, and others. Housing tax credit, add to the list of tax categories eligible for an offset. House Bill 551 by Representative Hill of the 3rd, and others. Controlled substances, create and provisions. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
This time, we'd like to introduce our Doctor of the Day, who's joined us today. And I'd like to call upon the Senator from the 45th to come up to the rostrum and introduce our Doctor of the Day. I wish there was an easier way than just like pointing and waving. I'm Jeff.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. It's my honor to be able to present a constituent that is here today. Dr. Sri Mandayam is double board certified in anesthesiology and interventional pain medicine. A son of an Army veteran, he grew up a military brat, but ultimately settled in Texas during his formative years. He received his medical degree from Texas Tech University, finished his anesthesiology residence at the University of Texas in Houston, and completed his fellowship in interventional pain medicine at the University of Utah. After practicing in Austin, Texas for several years, he joined Georgia Pain and Wellness Center in 2016, where he serves as the Chief Medical Officer, and we're glad to say that he's in Gwinnett County. He is an expert on chronic pain diseases and has published several research articles and book chapters on current treatment options for treating chronic pain. He currently sits on the Georgia statewide opioid task force, which many of us are members of, and has given several CME lectures to community physicians on the controlled substances. We're delighted to have such a well-versed and well-known medical doctor here today. Would you like to say a few words? Sure.
I'd like to thank you for having me out here and participate in the Doctor for a Day program. I'm really excited that the state of Georgia has programs like this to help help initiate preventative medicine in order to prevent chronic diseases later on in life. If you need to see me, I'll be out there waiting for you guys. Thanks a lot, and you have a good day.
Thank you.
It is now time for our morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Any motions to excuse? Chair recognizes the senator from the 55th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 36th. She's ill.
Without objection, the senator from the 36th is excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 46th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 37th for business outside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 37th is excused. The chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 38th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 38th is excused. The chair recognizes the senator from the 45th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 47th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 47th is excused. Chair recognizes the senator from Cumming, Georgia.
Good morning, Mr. President. I would like to ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 28th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 28th is excused. Are there any other additional motions to excuse? Secretary will call the roll of senators. Signify your presence by voting the yea switch. The secretary will unlock the machine. It is now time for a morning devotional. It is now time for morning devotional. I'd ask that all senators please take your seats. All senators please take your seats and cease all audible conversations. All senators please take your seats and cease all audible conversations. Doorkeepers, please secure the doors. I'd like to recognize a senator from the 24th to lead us in our pledge and to introduce our chaplain of the day.
Let us pledge to the greatest flag in the world. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Georgia flag. Pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag, the principles it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Good morning. It is my privilege to introduce the chaplain of the day, a dear friend of mine from Davisburg, Georgia, which operates a facility called Broken Shackle and also Mighty Man Ministry. Mighty Man Ministry is where grown men can go and turn their life around that's addicted to drugs and alcohol. Broken Shackle is for the juveniles. They can hold up to 30 boys. Gary Cobb has been doing this for 36 years. Through Broken Shackle, he has almost had 9,000 boys go through his program. They also go the extra mile and helps the boys get a GED. And then they go the real extra mile and they are certified in welding, automotive, and cabinet shop to where they can give them a certificate when they graduate so they can go get a job. It's truly my honor to introduce you to Gary Cobb also, because at one time he was a chaplain in the state prisons. Many times I'd call him and he wouldn't answer his phone. So I called him, and then he finally answered the phone. I said, well, dude, we call each other dude a lot. I said, dude, you didn't answer your phone. He said, well, I know, I was in jail. So I want to introduce you to a dear friend of mine, a man that really has a God-calling talent to help people turn their life around, Gary Cobb.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, President. Thank you, Senators, for allowing me to be here. To start off, there was this guy, a homeless guy. He died. He had no family. He had nowhere to go. Nobody, to even speak over him. And so the undertaker, he felt really bad about it. So he called his friend who was really good with bagpipes, and he played his bagpipes at funerals and everything. So the undertaker called him and said, I know it's the last minute, but I want you to play a funeral today, in just a few minutes. And he said, man, I'm not even ready. But he said, okay. So he gave him his address, and he hurried out to get his dress and everything on. And he put the address in his GPS, and he arrived at this place. It was just a small place, but he was late. It was already covered up. And he just stepped out of his car and got his bagpipes and played the best funeral he's ever played in his whole life. And there was a guy sitting over to the edge, one of the guys that covered it up and everything. There was nobody there except the bagpipe player and those guys that were the grave diggers. And he looked at the other guys around him. He says, it's crazy. I have been digging septic tanks and putting in septic tanks for many years, and I have never seen this in my entire life. So the moral of this story is, are you in the right place at the right time? We as citizens of the state of Georgia truly hope so, that you have been chosen for this time and this day. And the scripture for today is 1 Timothy 2, 1 through 3. It says, I exhort, therefore, that first of all, supplications, prayers, and intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings, and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceful life in all godliness and honesty, for this is good and acceptable in the sight of God our Savior. Let's pray. Father, I pray in the name of the Lord Jesus for our governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, the state house, and distinguished men and women of the Senate chamber, to receive the wisdom of God, to act in obedience to that wisdom, and for the power of God to flow in their lives. I pray for the members of the Senate and the House of Representatives to find your peace and direction, and to act and lead according to your word. A house divided against itself cannot stand. Therefore, I pray for them to be unified in righteousness for the sake of our great state. I pray that no leader of our state will make any decision that will harm our citizens in any way. And in the name of Jesus, I pray that you reveal your perfect will to all these leaders. I ask you, Lord, to reveal yourself to each person here today. Thank you, Father, for hearing our prayers this morning. In Jesus' name, amen.
Great job. I love your opening. And I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming. That was great. Are there any unanimous consents? Hearing none, we're going to move on and introduce some special guests that we have with us today that we'd like to recognize. Will the Secretary read the resolution?
Senate Resolution 457 by Senator Moles the 53rd, a resolution commending the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta's therapy dogs known as Canines for Kids and for the retirement of their first therapy dog, Casper, and for other purposes. Whereas the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Canines for Kids program was established in 2009, and whereas Casper, a golden retriever born on December 11, 2007, was the first ever facility dog at a pediatric hospital, and whereas children's facility dogs provide support and accompaniment during procedures, motivation to reach therapeutic and treatment goals, and for other purposes, now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body commend Casper, Lisa Kinsell, and the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta therapy dogs known as Canines for Kids. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon the senator from the 53rd to introduce our very special guest today.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, it sure is a pleasure for me to be here this morning to recognize the first ever pediatric hospital facility dog for Children's Hospital of Atlanta, Casper, and his handler, Lisa Kinsell, and many others that have been part of Casper's training and so forth. Casper joined the staff at Children's Hospital of Atlanta in 2009 when Lisa and Children's Hospital established a Canine for Kids program. Lisa Kendall, who was a manager of volunteer services and Canines for Kids, pioneered this program, and now Children's Hospital across the country replicates this model and best practices. Casper is a golden retriever, as you can see, who was born in 2007 and has become the patriarch of Children's Canines for Kids program. He is like the facilities dog, where it's underwent extensive training, like the senator from Ocilla, for 18 months. Casper is a golden retriever. After 9 years of service of hundreds of pediatric patients, and even suffered a stroke and returned to work after that. I mean, what an amazing dog. Casper and Lisa retired from Children's at the end of last year. They leave behind a strong program and a legacy where Children's Hospital now has 16 full-time faculty dogs serving patients from Eagleston's, Scottish Rite, and Marcus Autism Center. Today we have Casper, Lisa, John Kendall, and Kara Klein, who is currently the Canines for Kids coordinator. Would you please help me welcome a special dog, Casper and Lisa, and Children's Hospital of Atlanta's Canine for Kids program. Take a bow, Casper. Thank you, Mr. President. We're going to go over here. Thank you. We're going to go over here and take a picture.
Mr. Secretary, will you read the resolution for our next set of special guests we have with us today?
Senate Resolution 109 by Senator Watson of the First and others, a resolution recognizing March 28, 2019 as Progressive Multiple Sclerosis Day at the State Capitol and for other purposes. Whereas there are more than 400,000 people in the United States and an estimated 2.3 million people globally who are living with multiple sclerosis, a chronic disabling disease of the central nervous system for which there is no cure, whereas nearly 80% of people with MS may develop a progressive form of the disease, characterized as progressive worsening of neurological function over time, and whereas early and appropriate treatment, including the use of disease-modifying therapies, can markedly reduce disease activity and accumulation of disability, potentially allowing patients to have a more active and independent lifestyle. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body acknowledge the importance of education regarding the plight of those with multiple sclerosis and recognize March 28, 2019 as Multiple Sclerosis Day at the State Capitol. That concludes the order.
I'm going to bang his gavel, so I don't want anybody to jump. Is there any objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon the senator from the 1st to introduce our special guest that we have with us today.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's certainly indeed an honor to be here for Multiple Sclerosis Day, which is March 28th. As you know, we're not having any special orders that day, so we're here today. We have several special guests today with us, and just a little bit of background, as you heard in the recitation there, that Multiple sclerosis can be a progressive illness. About 80% of the time it is. More importantly, and from a scientific standpoint, we do have disease-modifying agents that have made a remarkable improvement over the past few decades, actually. It does coincide with what we passed yesterday in the STEP therapy bill here in the Senate, so we should be all proud of that. But more importantly, we should be proud of these people and their family, these patients and their family that are here today representing the people across the state with multiple sclerosis. So I'd like for Tiffany to say a few words here, if you would. Thank you very much.
Very much. I am Tiffany Bellato. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 19 years old, and my doctor let me know that I probably had it several years before then. As a person who has gone through the ups and downs, the ins and outs, the pains of multiple sclerosis, I am here to say that I am glad that we are adopting this resolution so we can no longer suffer in silence. And we appreciate your support. I am blessed to say that I have gone from being paralyzed from my chest all the way down to my feet to being able to move and to be able to walk with assistance because of people like you supporting me. I thank you very much, and I speak for everyone else who is suffering in silence and living and being thankful and hopeful for your support. I really love you guys, and thank you very, 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 very much from the bottom of all of our hearts. Thank you.
We have some additional special guests with us today that we'd like to recognize. Mr. Secretary, can you read the resolution, please?
Senate Resolution 284 by Senators Anderson of the 24th and others, a resolution recognizing Todd Green for his outstanding accomplishments in the sport of baseball and for other purposes. Whereas a resident of Alpharetta, Georgia, Todd Green is a graduate of Evans High School, where his baseball teams won back-to-back state championships in 1980 and 1989. Todd graduated with his team having a 52-game winning streak, and his high school number 10 was retired. And whereas after a very successful playing career, Todd joined the San Diego Padres scouting department, where he worked as a professional scout. And whereas Todd worked as a professional scout for the Seattle Mariners for the 2010 season before joining the Arizona Diamondbacks scouting department, he is currently in his 9th season with the Diamondbacks and his 2nd season as a special assignment scout, where he focuses on serving as an advisor on player trades and acquisitions. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize Todd Green for his outstanding accomplishments in the sport of baseball and extend their most sincere best wishes for continued success. That concludes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. It's always an honor for me to introduce a fellow baseball player. First time I heard Todd Green's name was when I was a freshman at Georgia Tech, and we went down to Statesboro to play at Georgia Southern. And there was a guy on the team, his name was Buck Hall. And Buck Hall was a lefty that threw in the upper 90s. And apparently, a couple of years beforehand, he had faced Mr. Green down there in Statesboro. And it was late in the game. And there's a story about how far he hit a baseball off of Buck Hall over a whole set of trees. And I think as the story continued to progress, it's up to about 900 feet that he hit the ball. But obviously, Todd's had an incredible career that he has had taken him all over this country, and he's been a great ambassador for the game of baseball. And we now get to cross paths coaching youth sports, youth baseball teams all across the Atlanta region. So at this time, I'd like to call on the senator from the 24th to finish the introduction.
Well, Mr. President, you about did all the introduction. But
Don't bring the baseball guy up here.
I hear you. It gives me great honor to introduce you to Todd Green today, a gentleman that was raised in Columbia County, grew up in Evans, Georgia, played high school at Evans, also went on to Georgia Southern, and then he became a professional baseball player, but his most famous moment, he tells me, is when he caught the catch from the first pitch from President Bush after 9/11. And that was such an honor. Ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman has returned back to the state of Georgia, lives in the state of Georgia, and as the president said, he gives his gift back to young people, and he helps young people develop into grown great men. He also is a family man, and I'm going to let him introduce his whole family, and it gives me great honor to introduce you to Todd Green.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Anderson, first of all, it's an honor and a privilege to be here in front of you, all these distinguished guests here, standing on the Senate floor. And fellow Georgians, this is my wife, Vanessa, who we've been together since we were 15 years old at Evans High School. Thank you. Been married 27 years now. And I have Aaron. And so I started from humble beginnings in Martinez, Georgia, grew up there, went to Evans High School. I was very fortunate to have a high school coach who was like a second father to me, who held me accountable as I was growing up. As I try to do now with the better players, I don't let them get away with anything because it's the way I was brought up. I was fortunate to have a mom and dad who trusted coaches to be hard on their little baby boy. And then went on to Georgia Southern, where I was fortunate to play for one of the best college coaches in the history of the game, who also held me accountable and taught me how to play the game the right way. After that, I went on to play on the USA team in 1991 and helped us qualify for the 1992 Olympics. We played down in Havana, Cuba for 3 weeks, which was that was a culture shock, to say the least, and certainly made me understand how fortunate we are and everything we have specifically in the great state of Georgia here. After that, I went on to pro ball, and as Senator Anderson mentioned, the highlight of my career probably was catching the first pitch from President Bush before Game 3 of the 2001 World Series. Obviously, with what was going on in our country, it was a big time for our moment, and now every September 11th, comes by or the World Series starts, everybody talks about what a great pitch it was by President Bush, but I thought the catch was equally as important on that night. So, yeah, the framing metrics are very important these days. So I was very fortunate to be a part of that. But in all seriousness, I am honored and privileged to be here today, and I thank you all kindly.
Ms. Secretary, will you read the resolution for our next special guest today?
Senate Resolution 293 by Senator Jackson II and others, a resolution commending Charles Bowen, Esquire, for his contributions to the entertainment industry of Georgia and for other purposes. Whereas Charles Bowen attended Mercer University in Macon, Georgia, where he graduated summa cum laude with honors in psychology and political science. Bowe graduated from Georgetown University Law Center in 1995 and moved to Savannah to establish a corporate law practice. And whereas Bowe founded the Savannah Film Alliance in 2015 to foster cooperation and collaboration within the local entertainment industry. He is also the founder and president of Southern Gateway Production Services, which provides support to all out-of-town productions coming to the region. And whereas he is the co-founder of Aerospace Studios, the author of 3 ebooks on business and entertainment law, and currently serves on numerous corporate boards and councils. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body commend Charles Bowen for his dedication and hard work in corporate and business law, and for his unwavering commitment to the entertainment industry in Georgia. That concludes the order.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon the senator from the 2nd to introduce our special guest today.
I stand here with the gentleman of the 1st to recognize an outstanding Savannian. Charles Bourne is not only an excellent lawyer, but he has contributed significantly in the Low Country when it comes to the entertainment industry. Charles Bourne is a graduate of Mercer University, and he founded the Savannah Film Alliance, which opened the door for film industry in the coastal empire. He was the co-founder of the Aerospace Studios and the author of 3 books. He was named Business Person of the Year and Business Advocate for the Year by the AJC and the Savannah Morning News. But when it comes to the movie industry and the entertainment industry in Southeast Georgia, Charles Bourne has opened up doors for hundreds of individuals and brought many economic dollars to the Low Country when it comes to film and movies. I would like to introduce a man that has done so much for our great state when it comes to movies, so much for our community, my friend, Mr. Bowen.
Lieutenant Governor Duncan, Senator Jackson, my good friend Representative Gordon, and esteemed members of the Senate. I want to sincerely thank all of you for your kind words and your recognition today. It's truly an honor, and it not only means so much to me personally, but I'm very grateful that my family could be here. I'd like to introduce my daughter, Elena, a senior at Savannah Arts, my daughter, Alexandra, who will be a freshman at Savannah Arts next year, and my girlfriend, Ginger Fawcett, lead singer of Liquid Ginger, and former winner of Georgia Music Award for Best Female Rock Vocalist. So, I don't know if you're honoring the right person today, but I am particularly gratified that my 2 teenage daughters could be here today just to see firsthand that working hard in your profession and trying to help others succeed does not go unnoticed. I know it's a lesson they will carry with them into adulthood. And finally, I want to thank all of you, the leaders of Georgia, for the tremendous work that you have done for both promoting the entertainment industry and helping ensure every year that Georgia remains one of the greatest places in the world to do business. I'm very proud to be a Georgian. I'm very proud of all of you and to be honored by you. Thank you so much.
Take some pictures. Thank you. Mr. Secretary, will you read the resolution for our next special guest?
Senate Resolution 244 by Senator Jackson II, a resolution recognizing and commending Anne Marie Campbell and for other purposes. Whereas Anne Marie Campbell has long been recognized by the citizens of the state for the role that she has played in leadership and her commitment to her profession in the retail industry. Whereas she has diligently and conscientiously devoted innumerable hours of her time, talents, and energy towards the betterment of her community and state, as evidenced dramatically by her superlative service with the Home Depot since 1985. And whereas Anne Marie has served her community with honor and distinction, and her vision and unyielding commitment have set the standard for public service. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Anne Marie Campbell for her efficient, effective, unselfish, and dedicated public service to the state of Georgia, and extend the most sincere best wishes for your continued health and happiness. That concludes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon the busy senator from the 2nd, who's got another set of special guests with us today.
Thank you, members. I have a really special guest with us today. I stand here with the Lady of the Six to recognize an extraordinary young woman, Miss Anne Marie Campbell, who is Executive Vice President of Home Depot. And I know every one of you said, I should be up here because I have a Home Depot in my district. But Ms. Campbell is over all the Home Depots in the North and North America. But what's surprising about this young lady, she started out as a cashier. Started out as a cashier working for a company and worked her way up. And who says hard work don't matter? And who says that in America anything is possible? She had a dream, and her dream was hard work. She had a desire to make a store grow and make her career grow. So she was involved in Team Depot and volunteered. She was involved in the community service of Home Depot and volunteered and worked through the store. And now she was the Executive Vice President of Home Depot. We know what Home Depot means to the state of Georgia. We know what Home Depot means to this entire country. So I'd like to introduce Ms. Anne Marie Campbell, Executive Vice President of Home Depot.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me introduce a guest as well from Home Depot. It's Heather, and she's the VP, Vice President of, I would say government relations, but she's a VP of all things government relations, but she's with me today. So first of all, let me thank Lieutenant Governor Duncan and Senator Jackson and everyone in the Senate who continues to serve our great state of Georgia. And I'm especially honored, thank you Senator Jackson and Lieutenant Governor Duncan for this honor today. As Senator Jackson mentioned, I am the Executive Vice President of U.S. Stores, and I'm responsible for 400,000 associates in the U.S. And in Georgia, that's over 25,000 associates, which is continuing to grow, which is fantastic. In addition, as he mentioned, I started my career as a part-time cashier in Florida, and because of great states like this, companies grow and provide opportunities to so many. And one of my primary roles today is to continue to provide the opportunities that I experience to the 400,000 hardworking associates that continue to give every single day their sweat equity and commitment to our customers. Now, in addition to that, community is extremely important. One of the values of Home Depot is to give back. And we give back in many different ways. We give back to our veterans who continue to serve and keep us safe. We give back to our communities that help our company to grow. And we give back to people in need every single day. I personally sponsor scholarship for students who need help to get them complete their college education. This is a fabulous state. This is a great state. This is a great state for business, but it's not only a great state for business, it's a great state for family. And I'm proud to say myself, my husband Chris, and my two boys, Ryan and Alex, we are very, very proud to call Georgia home. Continue the great work, continue to serve the communities, and continue to make Georgia a great state for families and business. And thanks again for this honor that you gave me today. Thank you.
Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? The chair recognizes the senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have in the gallery this morning some young leaders from our Student Government Association and student councils from high schools in Henry County. If you'll please stand for me. You're all in the gallery now. So just so you know, I know one senator in particular that got his start in politics as student body president for his law school. So who knows, you guys may be in the Senate down here on the floor one day. So welcome to your state capitol. If y'all please recognize them for me. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 21st for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think in my 7 years, this is only the second time that I have come up for point of personal privilege. I want to tell you that 12 years ago, my daughter Courtney was accepted to attend UGA, the University of Georgia. And I remember how happy she was. And I thought, even though her mother and I went to LSU, we were so happy for Courtney. After she entered, spent 4 years, and graduated from UGA, Chantel and I learned to wear a red shirt with a G, and we learned to bark like a dog. We loved that our daughter had a great experience and received a great education. What really made me and Chantel happy was she kept the Hope Scholarship all 4 years. During her 4 years, Courtney received 100% of Hope funding and even received money for books. I want to tell you folks, I think the Hope Scholarship is one of the greatest pieces of legislation this General Assembly has ever passed. It has kept our best and brightest here. It has allowed kids that couldn't afford to go to college, and it has elevated the status of our universities. We have 2 universities in the top 15 in the country. But I want to tell you folks, it saddens me today that our students are receiving less than 70% of Hope funding, less than 70%. I believe we have 3 options. Number 1, we can increase the standards. I don't think we should do that. We already have high standards. It's hard to get in the University of Georgia or Georgia Tech, and that would result in less kids going to college. I think we can, number 2, cut cost, and I think we should do that. We should reduce tuition, cut cost and spending of the college system and the university system. And number 3, we got to find a new revenue source. I think it is the duty of this Senate body to look at options and find a new revenue source to make sure we're able to fully fund Hope and keep our best and brightest kids here in Georgia and give them the excellent education opportunities they deserve. Mr. President, I yield the will.
The chair recognizes the senator from the 47th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I want to, along with the senator from the 50th, welcome my friends from Jackson County that are here in our gallery today. Said one of the things that for me, they may be a little energized today. They just celebrated a new $1.67 billion investment from SK Batteries, said in Jackson County, and 2,000 jobs. So it's great to see things sparking right along in Jackson County, and good to have them here at the Capitol today. Let's give them a round welcome.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 16th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I come here to speak about and talk about a young man who lived in our district in Pike County, Dylan Thomas. He passed away in a football game, and I want us to honor him today. He was an outstanding athlete. He was a member of the community, outstanding Christian in his faith. He encouraged many in his community. It affected the entire community as far as what went on. His father is with us today, Darren Thomas, as we honor his son with this resolution. And I just ask for a minute, if we could, just a moment of prayer.
Senator has asked for a moment of silence.
Okay.
If all would rise.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th for a point of personal privilege.
Good morning, Mr. President. Just wanted to take a minute. There's far more Doldazols in the chamber here today than there probably should be. But I've got my wife and 2 of our kids are here, Lincoln and Naomi. Good morning, guys. And then my brother and his sister-in-law traveled down with their 3 girls, Lexi, Lainey, and Allison from Illinois. They got out of the car and told me something felt a little different. It feels a little different down in the South than it does in the North this time of year. But girls, that's just the smell and the feel of liberty, low taxes, and economic development. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will.
It's going to be hard to top that. Chair recognizes the senator from the 5th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fellow Senator, the great senator from District 29 just reminded me a little while ago, happy birthday. Yes, it's a happy birthday of Bangladesh, the country I was born. Today is the 48th anniversary of independence of Bangladesh. It's thousands of Bangladeshi American lives in state of Georgia and hundreds of thousands all around the country, contributing, becoming U.S. citizen and contributing to this country in all fields, including politics. I cannot be more proud being the first Bangladeshi state senator in the country, and I cannot be more proud I choose state of Georgia. Thank you, and I appreciate it. Then I'm honored to serve with all of you all and to serve the state of Georgia. Thank you, appreciate it. I yield the way.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 31st for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, it gives me a great honor this morning to recognize the Sigma Nu Fraternity on the occasion of its 150th anniversary. Sigma Nu has had a profound impact on my life, having a great part to do with my first two jobs out of college and my wife, who I met through Sigma Nu Fraternity. The fraternity was founded in 1869 at Virginia Military Institute in Lexington. Sigma Nu currently has 166 active chapters and colonies on college campuses throughout the United States and has initiated over 235 members since its founding. As an alumni myself of Sigma Nu's Iota Pi chapter, I know that we are committed to love, honor, and truth. Sigma Nu transforms society through the commitment of its members to the fraternity's founding principles, leadership, and ethical living. Sigma Nu is proudly represented on university campuses in the state since 1873. Currently, Sigma Nu has 11 chapters in the state of Georgia. There are 10,160 known living Sigma Nu members that reside in the state. And Metro Atlanta represents the third largest concentration of living Sigma Nus in the country. Within the state of Georgia resides 4 of the oldest Sigma Nu chapters, being at the University of Georgia, the Mu chapter, 1873, University of North Georgia, the Kappa chapter, 1881, Mercer University, 1884, and Emory University, the Xi chapter, at 1884. Sigma Nu's track record of developing ethical leaders is evident in both the House and the Senate of the state of Georgia. Currently, 4 Sigma Nu members serve in the State House of Representatives, and 5 serve in the State Senate, including senators from the 18th, the 21st, the 30th, and the 49th. In the gallery today, we have some other Sigma Nus in the gallery, and I would appreciate it if you would join me in recognizing them. If you all would stand, please.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 49th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the opportunity to share a point of personal privilege. It's interesting to know that the senator from the 31st met his wife at a fraternity party. We'll just let all that go. Mr. President, it gives me a great honor to welcome the Ismaili Muslim community to the state capitol today. They're having a profound impact on Georgia and our way of life, our culture, and our quality of life. In 2018, the Ismaili community celebrated the Diamond Jubilee of His Highness the Aga Khan in the 49th event with the world's 15 million Ismaili Muslims. Governor Nathan Deal met His Highness in Atlanta a year or so ago and worked to help develop over a period of time their impact on the state of Georgia, their culture, sharing their culture with the state of Georgia, and sharing their economic impact and their participation in the state of Georgia. Today, the Ismaili community, along with the American Institute of Architects, is showcasing an exhibit in the South Wing, and I would encourage you to go by there and take a look at it. It's very informative and really not only informative, but it adds a lot to our community and our culture. We've got a group in the gallery. We'd like to give them a warm Senate welcome. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, we're moving on. You've got a consent calendar of privileged resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Is there objection to the adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? You have a consent calendar of local bills before you. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections filed to the bill on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, there is an objection filed to House Bill 610 by Senator Dugan and others.
All right, House Bill 610 will be removed from the calendar and voted on separately as the next order of business. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the Committee on State and Local Government Operations, which is favorable to the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. The question is now on the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar. All those in favor will vote yea, opposed nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bills, the yeas are 49, the nays are 1. The bills on the local consent calendar, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. All right, we will now take up House Bill 610. The chair recognizes the senator from the 30th to speak to House Bill 610. Mr. Secretary, will you read the caption?
House Bill 610 by Representative Collins of the 68th and others, a bill we titled an act to authorize the Magistrate Court of Carroll County to charge a technology fee for each conviction of a traffic or ordinance violation, to specify the uses of which said technology fee may be put and for other purposes. Amendment 1 by Senator Dugan of the 30th and others offers the following amendment. Amend House Bill 610 by inserting "and each civil case" after violation on lines 2 and 9. That concludes the order.
Chair apologizes for missequencing here. Now I'd like to recognize the Majority Leader to speak to the bill and the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was trying to get my steps in today. The whole purpose of this local bill was to add these 4 words, and when it came over, we had not added those 4 words. So we're amending this to add what the bill was supposed to do to start with. Any questions? Thank you. I yield the way.
You have no questions. The question, any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Hearing none, the question is on the adoption of the amendment. Is there objection to the adoption of the amendment? The chair hears none, and the floor amendment is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass as amended? The question's on the passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed as amended. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the following bills and resolutions be engrossed: House Bill 264 and House Bill 344.
Will the secretary read the captions?
House Bill 264 by Representative Werkheiser, the 157th, and others. A bill be titled Enactment Article 4 of Chapter 5 of Title 21 of the OCGA relating to public officials' conduct and lobbyist disclosure, so as to provide that any natural persons undertaking to promote or oppose any matter before a local coordinating entity regarding the Emergency Medical Services Communications Program are subject to transparency and lobbyist disclosure laws and for other purposes. And House Bill 344 by Representative Gamble, the 15th, and others. Bill be titled Enactment Chapter 8 of Title 40 of the OCGA relating to sales and use taxes, so as to provide that the mission to advance arts in the state shall not be required to be an organization's primary mission in order to obtain an exemption for certain sales of tickets, fees, or charges, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
The majority leader has moved that House Bill 264 and House Bill 344 be engrossed. Is there objection? There is objection. Would the majority leader like to speak to his motion? Would you like to speak? Everyone waves. Majority leader has moved that House Bill 264 and 344 be engrossed. All those in favor of the motion will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 31, the nays are 17, and the motion has prevailed. House Bill 264 and House Bill 344 are engrossed. For what purpose does the senator from the 26th rise?
Mr. President, I'd like to ask for unanimous consent that Senate Bill 242, 252, 253, 254, 255, and 257 be immediately transmitted to the House.
The senator from the 26th has asked, and I believe these are all local bills, that Senate Bill 242, 252, 253, 254, 255, and 257 be immediately transmitted to the House. Is there objection? Hearing no objection, we will immediately transmit those local bills to the House. We are now moving on to the rules calendar. Will the Secretary read the caption of House Bill 26?
House Bill 26 by Representatives Belton of the 112th and others, a bill to be titled Enactment, Chapter 39 of Title 43 of the OCGA, relating to psychologists so as to enter into an interstate compact known as the Psychology Interjurisdictional Compact, to authorize the State Board of Examiners of Psychologists to administer the compact in the state, to revise provisions relating to exceptions to the licensure and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 14th to speak to House Bill 26.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm back here once again with another bill from the Pentagon. This is the Psychology Interjurisdictional Compact. It simply allows telemedicine with the psychology to be across interstate lines. If there's no questions, I'll yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48, the nays are 1. This bill having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. Ms. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 264.
House Bill 264 by Representative Workheiser, the 157th and others, a bill to be titled Enactment, Article 4, Chapter 5 of Title 21 of the OCGA, relating to public officials' conduct and lobbyist disclosure so as to provide that any natural person is undertaking to promote or oppose any matter before a local coordinating entity regarding the Emergency Medical Systems Communications Program are subject to transparency and lobbyist disclosure laws to amend Chapter 11 of Title 31 of the OCGA relating to emergency medical services and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Rules offers the following substitute to House Bill 264. A bill will be titled Enactment, Article 4, Chapter 5 of Title 21 of the OCGA relating to public officials' conduct and lobbyist disclosures to provide that any natural person is undertaking to promote or oppose any matter before a local coordinating entity regarding the Emergency Medical Systems Communications Program are subject to transparency and lobbyist disclosure laws to amend Chapter 11, Title 31 of the OCGA relating to emergency medical services so as to provide for the establishment, bylaws, and conflict of interest policies by local coordinating entities and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes our esteemed Rules Chairman to present House Bill 264.
Thank you, Mr. President. How many of you have ever been in the back of the ambulance? Do not raise your hands, just think with me here. And in the back of the ambulance, there are a lot of things going on. They're there to help you in your most critical situation. I've been a first responder with the fire service. I've been in the back of an ambulance many times hanging onto the rafters and doing chest compressions for somebody having a heart attack. So they're there for the most extreme situation that somebody be involved in. However, behind the scenes with ambulance provider, there's a lot of stuff going on. So this bill kind of addresses that. There's also a study committee that we've created to even go into more details during the summertime. But House Bill 284 deals with the transparency and the lobbying of the ambulance service. That's why this bill's in Ethics Committee. I mean, who would have thought an ambulance bill would be there? But it's because of the lobbyists and their reporting. And this is for people that lobby for or against some provider service of a community, whether they're lobbyists or not. This requires them to also register and to make sure that the whole entity is transparent. Of course, care for the patient is always the #1 priority, and by passing this legislation, we will ensure that there's no longer behind-the-scenes stuff going on that will be bad for the industry. House Bill 264 deals with the operations, that they must have bylaws for that, and conducting the meetings, actions of the members, and conflict of interest for all the members or the entities of the provider service that is in your community. I'll kind of give you an example. I know one provider that's also a coroner, and his family owns a funeral home service. That could be a conflict, couldn't it? Or it could be a one-stop shop. Who knows? But this bill gives great transparency to that industry. Mr. President, I will answer any questions, or I'll yield the way.
Our good friend from the 6th has a question. Recognize Senator from the 6th.
Will the senator yield?
Yes, of course.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to transparency, in a previous version of this bill, they required that the Open Meetings Act would apply to these regional council meetings. Do you know why these provisions were removed?
I do. We want some more work with the House, so I'm hoping we can get some more action with them. So we need to make it so they would be interested in working with us further.
So we took out transparency provisions?
Well, not all of them, but we did some so that we would have a conference committee that we could get into the detail with them on.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You have no more questions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your vote. Have a nice day.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none, and the questions on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is now agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Ms. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 59.
House Bill 59 by Representatives Belton, the 112th, and others. A bill will be titled Enactment Code Section 20-2-150 of the OCGA relating to eligibility for enrollment in elementary and secondary educational programs so as to allow military students to enroll in a public school based on official military orders prior to physically establishing residency and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Education and Youth offers the following substitute to House Bill 59. A bill will be titled Enactment Code Section 22-150 of the OCGA relating to eligibility for enrollment in elementary and secondary educational programs so as to allow military students to enroll in a public school based on official military orders prior to physically establishing residency, to amend Code Section 20-2066 of the OCGA relating to admission, enrollment, and withdrawal of students in charter schools so as to revise provisions relating to enrollment of students who reside in the attendance zone of a startup charter school or state chartered special school at the time of enrollment, to amend Code Section 20-2-2081 of the OCGA relating to definitions relative to state charter schools so as to provide that state charter schools with statewide attendance zones are considered to have statewide jurisdiction for certain purposes and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 32nd to speak to House Bill 59.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 59 allows military service members who have orders to a new duty station to pre-enroll their children in the new school system surrounding the base to which they have been ordered. This allows them to pre-register for classes with proper documentation. The children must live in the appropriate attendance zone when they physically enroll. This bill costs nothing and is fully supported by the Department of Education. This is another measure that enhances Georgia's position as a military-friendly state, and I would ask for your favorable consideration. Happy to answer questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 30th for a question.
Madam Chair, thank you for bringing this legislation. Is it not true that oftentimes families know well before the a service member has been reassigned to the duty assignment that they're going to move, and it's often during the middle of a school year, so this gives the family an opportunity to move down, pre-position, and wait until the official orders take place?
That's exactly correct. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate you bringing.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th for a question.
Mr. Chairman, yield.
I yield.
First, I want to thank you for this bill. Having served in the military and having had these situations happen, I think this is great, that it's going to help us be military friendly, and I want to commend you for that, and I want to urge everyone to vote in support of this bill.
Thank you, Senator.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 15th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
Yes.
Senator, I too certainly appreciate your efforts in this matter, but I have a question, and the question is along the lines of an interstate compact bill that this body and the General Assembly passed about 2001, and it had to do with children who would be traveling from one duty station to another. And at that time, the legislation required for us to be part of an interstate compact that said those children would be admitted to the various schools without their records being present with them. So I'm trying to figure out, is this dealing only with sort of a pre-registration even before they're transferred?
Thank you, Senator. As you know, 2001 was slightly before my time,
right.
But this bill just provides that if they give the school a copy of their military orders, they can pre-enroll. So I don't believe it's in conflict with any previous law.
Okay. Well, thank you for the legislation anyway, but that bill, as it relates to going from one school from Massachusetts to Georgia, if those children are military, they can apply for school and be admitted without the records being there. So I just wondered about that. But if this helps too, I thank you for the bill.
You have no additional questions.
Thank you. I yield.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none, and the question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 83?
House Bill 83, Representative Douglas of the 78th and others, a bill to title enactment Part 15 of Article 6 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the OCGA, relating to miscellaneous provisions under the Quality Basic Education Act, so as to provide for recess for students in kindergarten and grades 1 through 5 and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator, once again, from the 53rd, to speak to House Bill 83. The Rules Committee must have been favorable to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the recess bill. We actually passed this last year. Kind of got caught up in a conference committee that didn't work out well. But this is part of a child's education. Recess is nearly as important as academics. In fact, we all need recess. We all need relaxation. In fact, let me give an example. Would the senator from the 17th please ride? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's recess. This is non-recess. Would the senator from the 23rd look at me? Hey, senator, all right. That's recess. Where's the minority leader? That's no recess. So you see how important it is. The senator from the 1st, that's recess. The senator from the 51st, that's a lack of recess. So this bill is crucial. You're still incredible to me, senators. This bill is crucial for the students' well-being, and I want to thank the senator from the 40th for her importance being a part of this bill too. Now, the school board's got to have all these, have to have policies regarding child safety and their academic learning, and also the recess that they have to participate in. Now, in rural Georgia, we recess greatly. Sometimes here in the metro areas, they fail to do that properly. We're encouraging them to do that. Mr. President, I'll be glad to exit the well, or I could do side straddle hop or whatever, but I'll be glad to answer any questions.
That was quite a presentation, and you have no questions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your vote. Have a nice day.
Chair would like to recognize the senator from the 19th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members of the Senate. I appreciate the senator from the 53rd and his ability to include recess in everyday life. But what I would like to say also is this is a serious matter. I've spoken on many times and said that we're burdening school systems too much. I'm going to be voting against the bill today, not because I'm against recess, but because this can be implemented. It can be implemented on a local level. It can be implemented with 5 people on a school board. It doesn't take 180 representatives or 56 senators. So that's why I'm against it, although I do hope that everyone does get their time for recess, and I appreciate the efforts from the senator from the 53rd. Thank you, Mr. President. If there are no questions, I'll yield the well.
No questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none, and the previous questions ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question's on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. For what purpose the senator from the 53rd rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true this bill's all about the great recess direction that the man from Dimitri Douglas, there you are, inspired with me, number 53 defensive coordinator inside the huddle, University of Georgia.
The gentleman speaks with great passion, and I'm certain he knows of what he speaks. Chair recognizes the senator from the 49th for
parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true the senator from the 19th is going to be kept in from recess today?
Senator from the 19th might possibly be in detention. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48, the nays are 4. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. I'll have to tell my son Ryder about that one tonight. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 323?
House Bill 323 by Representatives Knight of the 130th and others, a bill be titled Enactment Chapter 64 of Title 33 of the OCGA, relating to regulation and licensure of pharmacy benefits managers so as to add a definition or revise provisions relating to administration of claims by pharmacy benefit managers, to revise provisions relating to prohibited activities of pharmacy benefit managers, to provide for an effective date and applicability, and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Health and Human Services offers the following substitute to House Bill 323, a bill be titled Enactment Chapter 64, Title 33 of the OCGA, relating to regulation and licensure of pharmacy benefits managers, so as to add a definition, to revise provisions relating to administration of claims by pharmacy benefit managers, to revise provisions relating to prohibited activities of pharmacy benefits managers, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Senator from the 53rd is going to have to share his secret on how he gets so many bills through rules in one day. Chair recognizes the senator from the 53rd to speak to House Bill 323.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I tell you, you have such a wonderful senator in charge of rules, it's easy to get bills through sometimes. But this bill's having to do with PBMs. Now, I have friends in the hall that are working on behalf of these people, but they're not really, PBMs are not popular. They have so many requirements on the patient. This is not a patient-friendly entity, but this bill helps improve that tremendously. It clarifies and strengthens existing mandatory mail order provisions that won't let them have to do that unless the patient wants it. This also has transparency provisions to connect with the rebates, to requiring reporting of the rebates and how they affect the bottom line and how they affect the patient's pocket. It prohibits ordering or directing or requiring patients to go to certain other pharmacies that are connected to them. This is all about your local pharmacists. It's all about your neighborhood pharmacists. In small communities, your mom and pop pharmacists. Bigger communities, it's the pharmacists around the corner. Even the pharmacists with these big boxes that are your PBMs, the pharmacists are even for this measure. The substitute, this requires that the patient is the focus of this, and it clarifies the strengthening of the existing mail order provisions and includes several new protections involving prohibiting self-referrals, isn't that amazing? Data mining, and also it's required that they can't give your information to other PBMs that are trying to solicit you. This is a good bill, and your local pharmacist is all about this bill. Mr. President, I could go into the details and be glad to if there's any questions. All right. I certainly appreciate your support of this measure, and I appreciate your vote. Have a good day.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none, and the questions on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection or agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. We're going to take a quick break in the action and recognize some extremely special guests that we are honored to have with us today. And I'd like to call upon the senator from the 19th to introduce them for us.
Thank you, Mr. President. The senator of the 1st would like to come up here as well. It is my pleasure to represent part of Fort Stewart down in southeast Georgia. And we have with us today members who are in charge, the brass of that organization. And see the senator from the 30th, you're welcome to join us up here as well. And I want to present to you now Major General Lee Quintus, who is the commanding general of Fort Stewart down in southeast Georgia. Major General, if you'd like to step up and say a few words to the Senate.
Mr. President and senators from the delegation from coastal Georgia, thanks for the amazing support that we receive each and every day out of Fort Stewart and Hunter Army Airfield. I'm honored to have with me here today my Division Command Sergeant Major Mike Coffey, my Garrison Commander Jay Walter, the Mayor of Hinesville, Mayor Brown, and then, of course, my aide-de-camp who does everything for all of us to support us. On behalf of the 18,500 soldiers of the Marne Division and the 29,000 family members that support them each and every day, I just want to say that we call Georgia our home. We're incredibly grateful for the support that we receive from the community each and every day, and we're honored to serve the great state of Georgia and the nation. Thank you very much.
Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 171?
House Bill 171 by Representatives Barr, the 103rd, and others. A bill be titled and enacted in Part 4 of Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 40 of the OCGA, relating to horns, exhaust systems, mirrors, windshields, tires, safety belts, and energy absorption systems of motor vehicles, so as to allow for the use of mounts on windshields of motor vehicles for the support of wireless telecommunications devices and standalone electronic devices under certain circumstances and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Public Safety offers the following substitute to House Bill 171. Bill be titled and enacted in Part 4 of Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 40 of the OCGA, relating to horns, exhaust systems, mirrors, windshields, tires, safety belts, and energy absorption systems of motor vehicles, so as to allow for the use of mounts on windshields of motor vehicles for the support of wireless telecommunications device and standalone electronic devices under certain circumstances and for other purposes. Amendment 1 by Senator Ligon III and others offers the following amendment to amend House Bill 171. Amend House Bill 171's committee substitute by striking parts 2 and 3 on lines 22 through 80. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th to introduce House Bill 171.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fellow senators, I rise today to speak for the passage of House Bill 171. While in this chamber yesterday, I heard the honorable senator from District 18 state that anytime you had a House bill or a bill before this body, there were 3 questions to ask. The first question is, what is the purpose? The purpose of 171 is to save lives. What's the intent? The intent of 171 is to have everyone drive safe, everyone pay attention as they do drive, and everyone to be buckled in their vehicle when they drive. And when passed, what will 171 do? It will save lives of Georgians, men, women, and children who live in our state, and those who pass through. What House Bill 171 does, last year, this body passed a distracted driving law that made it illegal for anyone to carry their phone in their hand or be distracted by an electronic device while they were driving around the state of Georgia. And being the proud driver of a Ford F-150 with a 6-inch lift, I have the ability to look into other vehicles as I travel down the roads. And more often than not, I see individuals with their phones balanced on their thigh, holding it down in their hand, and in other places, attempting not to be caught by state law enforcement while using apps such as Waze and other GPS-type guides to get them to where they need to be. So House Bill 171 allows the driver of those vehicles to place a mount in their vehicle somewhere in the vicinity of the dash, as long as it's not obstructing their view as they drive, so that they're able to have both hands on the steering wheel and their attention on the road. And as an amendment to House Bill 171 with the Public Safety Committee, we added the language, again, to save lives in Georgia, to keep more people buckled up. We added the language to allow for information to be brought into a civil trial to determine if a plaintiff in a case who is claiming a certain amount of medical or physical injuries contributed any part of that by their failure to follow Georgia law. It's somewhat unusual the way that this information was struck from Georgia law to begin with, because in the case of Stockinger and Dunish in 1964, this information was allowed. In Georgia in 1970, you could go into the courtroom, and if you were involved in an accident and you were at no fault of the accident but you suffered injuries, you would have to tell the jury, if asked, if you had on your seatbelt, so the jury could determine how much of the injuries were caused by the accident itself and what portion of those injuries could be contributed to you failing to wear your seatbelt. And then explicitly in 1987, this rule was adopted into Georgia law. Right after it was adopted into Georgia law, in 1987, the next year, in 1988, a unique thing happened in the state of Georgia. What happened is this General Assembly passed legislation to require every front seat passenger in Georgia to wear their seat belts, and put regulations in for children to wear seat belts. But as things sometimes happen under the Gold Dome, the ability to give a jury, a panel of our peers, the ability to understand the full impact of the injuries as far as to what proportion goes to the individual who caused the accident. In law enforcement, we call that Vehicle 1. And to what portion of the responsibilities of the injuries caused were caused by the passenger of Vehicle 2, who was the non-at-fault driver for not buckling up. And there have been cases that 90% of it went to Vehicle 1 and 10% went to the driver of Vehicle 2 because he or she failed to buckle up. But when the General Assembly passed the seatbelt law, as anybody in here can imagine, negotiations were held, conferences were held, and that one little piece of information that allowed men and women who are qualified to vote, who are qualified to send people to the electric chair at that time, that one little piece of information was taken out so it could be withheld from them. Currently, there are 22 states that allow this type of information in some degree to be added in, whether to allow the judge or the jury the opportunity to determine the percentages of who's at fault because of the action by the Vehicle 1 or the action by Vehicle 2. The equipment we have today, we have event data recorders in most vehicles on our roads today. I have one in the F-150 I spoke of earlier. I own that event data recorder. It is part of my vehicle. If I'm involved in an accident, I can take a Bosch machine, a crash data retrieval device. I can plug it into that black box, and I can tell you when I braked before impact, when the airbags deployed at impact, if I was buckled up, and if the individual riding in my passenger seat who would be my wife, if she was buckled up also. It would give every bit of detail in a detailed hard copy report that the jury would look at. You're going to hear things about prejudicial evidence and all this other good stuff. Let me tell you, every piece of evidence in a civil case, in a criminal case, is prejudicial to somebody in that courtroom. And I tell you that not because I've driven by law schools. I've never went to one. But I spent 31 years listening to criminal cases, civil cases, and domestic cases. If everybody agrees on all the evidence, guess what? There is not. There is not a jury. There is not a bench trial. There is not a trial. There's a settlement. So you'll hear about the prejudicial. Unduly prejudicial is entirely different. This is not unduly prejudicial evidence. Unduly prejudicial evidence is evidence that has absolutely nothing to do with the situation. It has absolutely nothing to do with what caused the accidents or what caused the injuries. This is a good piece of legislation. Lady Liberty, from the time of the Roman Empire, carried a scale with no base on it. The purpose it had no base is because it was to get absolute balance. She was a female, a goddess, because females were the most fair in the judicial process in Rome. And she did not wear a blindfold because she made sure. All I'm asking is that you give the juries of your peers, your friends, and your neighbors the opportunity that when they are in a courtroom, that they can make an honest and fair evaluation of a civil case involving an accident. This is not going to take anything away from anybody. The only people in the courtroom with the responsibility of apportioning fault should be the jury. The power and trust we have in the jury system is reestablished from the mistake made in 1988. By passing this. We require people to wear motorcycle helmets if they are struck by another vehicle, no fault of their own. If the motorcycle rider is vehicle 2, he or she can be asked in a civil case if they were wearing a helmet. And if we can ask them if they were wearing a helmet, we should be able to ask the injured party in other accidents if they were wearing a seatbelt. And if there are no questions, Mr. President, I'll yield the well.
You have some questions. Chair recognizes the senator from the 6th for a question.
Will the senator yield?
Yes, ma'am.
You indicated that every piece of evidence is prejudicial to someone in a courtroom, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And with respect to that, you believe that light should just be shown on all of the evidence for juries to consider?
All non-unduly prejudicial evidence, yes, ma'am.
So would you agree that then the fact of an insurance policy or insurance coverage should also be admitted into a court of law?
In some cases, I would agree to that. That was not a discussion in this process.
So with respect to, we always ask a lot of times, like who supports this and who the lobbyists are that are behind this and pushing this. Isn't it true that this is actually being pushed by the insurance lobby?
No, ma'am. Actually, this was a conversation I had while on my campaign. I was interviewed by a group, and they asked me what my feelings were on tort reform. And I told them that as a law enforcement officer of 31 years, the amendments were like my children, which I have several, and I love them dearly. I love the 7th Amendment as much as I do the 2nd or the 5th or the 1st. And those are the way I explained it to them. I told them I love the 7th Amendment the same way. They said, well, what do you think about tort reform? I said, we can make tweaks throughout the top and bottom. But no one from the insurance industry has approached me about anything in this bill that I'm aware of. But this was something that came up during the campaign that I was not aware of at the time, that this information was not allowed in a civil case.
Will the senator yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you agree with me that evidentiary rules are all rules of exclusion?
You say the question again?
Rules of evidence used in civil and criminal cases are all rules of exclusion.
I believe the senator knows of which she speaks. Again, I was not a law school student.
So, and you defined unduly prejudiced as being nothing to do with a given situation?
Unduly prejudiced evidence is usually that red herring that's brought in off to the left or the right. During this process, somebody said that a citation for DUI against vehicle number 1 could not be offered into evidence. They were absolutely right. The citation can't, but the toxicology report can, and other evidence which would show that the individual was in fact DUI. But the fact just to bring the citation in would be unduly prejudicial. But bringing in all the medical information as it played out in the civil case would not be unduly prejudicial.
Will the senator yield?
Yes, ma'am.
You indicated that you could just hook up a Bosch machine to your truck and download in terms of seatbelts, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You would agree with me that it wasn't until 2012 that the ability to determine if someone's wearing a seatbelt was even required in cars?
It was actually a little before that when the machine first came out. I can go back and give the lady the dates if I get an opportunity to go through the research. But the machine's been out for quite a while. Large sheriff's offices out in the western part of the United States have used them a lot on accident reconstruction and things of that nature.
And I'm not talking about the machine itself. I'm talking about with respect to the information that the machine is
You're
supposed to be
talking about
downloading.
the black box.
Right, within the car.
It varies on the make and model of the car as to what information was available at what date. There's continual upgrades going on. So as far as what was going on in 2012 or what may have been going on in 1970, I can't testify to that.
Okay, but the law, I'll represent to you that the law didn't require this information to be registered within the car system until 2012 or after.
I'll yield that the lady knows of which she speaks.
Now, with respect to your experience as a law enforcement officer, you have access to these machines,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
And they're incredibly expensive.
No, ma'am.
With respect to, do you know how much it costs to actually do a download?
Yes, ma'am.
How much?
The average cost is $450. That's including transportation of the 4 vendors that do it that I looked at here in Georgia, and one works for the 3rd largest insurer in the United States.
The 3rd largest insurer?
Insurer, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I asked them who they downloaded for. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And so they're a captured entity for the insurer.
That one is. The other 3 are independents here in Atlanta.
Okay, and have you ever used these independents?
No, ma'am. I've never downloaded anything from the black box in my truck because I've never had to.
And with respect to that, you indicated you've been in the courtroom in terms of the criminal stuff, but you've actually never seen how this plays out in a civil court of law. Is that a correct statement?
That is an incorrect statement.
That's an incorrect statement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go
As
ahead.
deputy sheriffs in the state of Georgia are required to work in all courts, civil courts, domestic courts, and criminal courts. Therefore, we've been in all the courts, in federal court. Yes, ma'am.
I understand you've been in them, but
Yes, ma'am.
with respect to actually how this evidence plays out with respect to a jury in a car wreck case.
If you would explain the definition of plays out, I may be able to answer your question.
When someone tries to offer this information, there's an objection, the motion, the back and forth, whether the jury considers it, doesn't consider it, whether it's prejudicial or not prejudicial.
This particular information right here cannot be offered, according to Georgia law.
Right, but people try to all the time. Isn't that
I've,
correct?
no, ma'am, I've never seen anybody try to enter this evidence in the court. No, ma'am.
Okay, well, I have.
I believe the lady.
With respect to the states, and one more question, then
Yes,
I'll let
ma'am.
everybody else ask you. Isn't it true that Georgia is one of 30 states that don't allow this evidence?
22 states do, and I'd be more than happy to run down the list at some point if you would like for me to.
With respect to those states, though, this goes far further than those states. I mean, it's very limited in terms of the use. For example, insurance policies or the fact of insurance. Usually there's a prohibition, but there are exceptions to that evidentiary rule. The same for those other states.
I'll believe what you say about the insurance. I know the information I've read about the states. And as I stated originally, that to different degrees, 22 states allow this in, and then other states don't. Some allow it in unmolested, and others pull it apart and move it from side to side, as many courts do, and I'm sure the senator knows that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator, continue to yield.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 17th for a question.
Senator yield.
Yes, sir, I do.
Senator, didn't you have another bill that dealt with this issue previously?
Yes, I did, Senator.
Do you further yield?
I do.
What was that bill number?
I don't recall that bill number right now. I attempted to have a hearing and a vote in judiciary, and I was not able to get that.
Do you further yield?
I do.
So you had this issue in a separate bill that had a hearing in judiciary. You just didn't get the vote that you wanted, is that right?
That's right.
And so you had this bill added.
I did not get to correct, no, sir. I did not get the vote I wanted. I did not get a vote.
Did not get a vote yet?
Yes, sir.
But your bill will still be alive for the next session, correct?
Yes, it would.
Do you further yield?
But in response to that, the bill would still be alive, but I'm not sure as many Georgians would be, and I do continue to yield.
House Bill 171, the underlying bill is a very important bill, is it not?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
With respect to House Bill 171, the underlying bill, without your amendments, a very important bill, is it not?
Is a very what bill?
Important bill.
I think from a distracted driving, but I think both of these are extremely important because both of them deal with the life and safety of individuals traveling the streets and highways in the Peach State.
Do you further yield?
I do.
Isn't it true by adding your language to House Bill 171, you're possibly preventing 171 from becoming law this year?
That's entirely up to you, Senator.
Do you further yield?
I do.
And Senator, if we accept the amendment, your portion of this bill, which is a separate standalone bill in judiciary, could be heard separately, so House Bill 171 can move forward today. Is that correct?
My initial part of the bill also included everyone to be seatbelted, and I think the best way for this bill to pass, and as opposed to the workings that happen here, these need to stay married.
You go for one more question.
I do.
Senator, you talked about withholding information from a jury. Isn't what you're doing holding an issue from the experts in this body and the Senate Judiciary Committee to thoroughly vet this bill by having your standalone amendment on 171?
No, sir. I think I gave them ample opportunity to thoroughly vet the bill as I, along with an in-house attorney from a large firm that deals with these types of cases, was also able to offer education to the committee. And I felt that enough information was given that a reasonable vote should have been taken. Thank you, Senator.
Do you continue to yield?
I do, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
I do.
Senator, you mentioned something earlier. I want to make sure I get your phrasing right. Prejudicial, is it something shouldn't be allowed if it's unduly prejudicial? Is that the phrase you used?
As a lawyer, I think you caught that perfectly, sir.
Can you help me understand what things you consider to be unduly prejudicial? What should we not allow to go to the jury?
Yeah, if the individual has a criminal history that has absolutely nothing to do with the accident, that would be unduly prejudicial. If the individual happens to be unemployed, that's unduly prejudicial. If the individual has to be in this country illegally, that's unduly prejudicial. There are many things that have nothing to do with the accident, that had nothing to do with the injuries caused in the accident, that would be unduly prejudicial. Anything that wants to push the jury to a decision away from the facts of the case, as in who caused the accident and who caused the injuries.
Will the senator further yield?
Yes, sir, I will.
So some of those things that you've mentioned, I want to ask you about a few others. If someone has had a previous DUI, maybe this is the third or fourth DUI that they've had, should that be admissible to the jury?
No, it should not.
If someone got a ticket for speeding in this accident, should that be admissible to the jury?
The citation itself not, but I believe the information from the box in the download would offer that information out, so it could be used by the jury. I could see cases where judges would actually allow that in, especially if the seatbelt information is allowed for the jury to evaluate.
Will the senator further yield?
I will.
I want to walk down this road with you really quickly.
Let's go.
If someone causes an accident, if the vehicle strikes another vehicle, and the person who's injured is not wearing a seatbelt, are we creating a situation here where the equally at fault driver, wearing a seatbelt or not wearing a seatbelt, this is, I think you called it car one.
Correct.
Are we creating a situation where we've somehow incentivized, enhanced, or benefited driver one who caused the same exact type of injuries? Was equally negligent. Are we somehow benefiting them just because they happened to hit someone who wasn't wearing a seatbelt?
Absolutely not. What we've done is if the the individual comes into court and whatever the amount they're seeking for medical costs and all this, the jury would look at that and they would proportion the fault. They would say the 75% of the injuries caused in this accident were caused by vehicle 1 striking vehicle 2, but that 25% of the injuries because many people not wearing seatbelts are injured by airbags that deploy. And a lot of times if you look at the injuries, you can see from the angle that if the individual would have been wearing their seatbelt when they were struck from the rear, from the side, they would have not have received those injuries. Many individuals, and when I say many, a fraction less than 100% of individuals who are jettisoned from their vehicle or thrown out of their vehicle and die in the middle of the road are not wearing their seatbelts either. And so when the individual vehicle 1, as tragic and sad as the death may be, we live in a country where we all have to accept responsibility for our decisions, good and bad. And so I think that would be up to the jury to determine the damages there.
Will the Senator further yield?
Yes, sir, I will.
You mentioned vehicle 1 again. Would the individual in the hypothetical you gave be ejected from their vehicle had they never been struck by vehicle 2?
Struck by vehicle 1.
So we're reversing it. So
yeah.
would the person in vehicle 2?
Vehicle 1 is the striker. Vehicle 2 is the victim.
The victim. Would the person in vehicle 2 have ever been ejected had they not been struck by vehicle 1?
No, they would not have.
Thank you for your answers. I got one more question for you. On lines 30, or would the Senator yield?
Yes, I will.
On lines 30 and 31, there's some language that's struck.
What's the LC number you're looking at, please?
The original, this is going to be your committee sub, 392231TS.
Yes, sir. 30 and 31?
Right. We struck the language to increase rates. You mentioned carefully crafted deals earlier, and it looks like...
I'm saying... Okay, go ahead. I couldn't hear you.
It looks like this language that's being struck right here would allow an insurance company to raise rates if a citation is given for the original offense. Is that did you intend to propose this bill which could increase insurance rates?
Insurance are private companies, and I think if anybody's at fault, I'm not in the insurance business, but I would assume they would increase their rates if anybody was at fault or doing something that was counter to the policy that they signed. Okay. So I'm not sure exactly.
Will the Senator yield?
I'll yield for one more question.
I just wanted to make sure you understood that by striking the language that's struck on line 31, that you're creating the potential for increased insurance rates. It may have been unintentional.
I see what you're saying where it says, no, I see what you're saying now where you're saying what is struck is or increase in insurance rates.
Right, and the word shall not is right before it on line 30.
Right, shall not be the basis for cancellation of insurance coverage, period.
Right, so now the insurance company, this would be a basis for increasing insurance rates.
That would be a decision entirely up to them. Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. President, I yield the well.
The senator has yielded the well. Chair would like to recognize the senator from the 3rd to speak to his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. My amendment removes lines 22 through 80 from the bill and basically eliminates the seatbelt provisions that have been the subject of discussion, and I'd like to talk about that a minute. My good friend and the author of the bill, when he came up here and talked about his bill, he told us that the purpose of this bill was to save lives. And then under further questioning, he told us that, yes, if we had this bill, more lives would be saved. That was the emphasis of this section of his bill. But the fact is, if the purpose really were to save lives, if that's the focus of what we were going to do, then we would be making changes to the seatbelt law. And we would be saying, we'll double, we'll triple, we'll quadruple the fines for not wearing a seatbelt. And that way we'll let the public know that, yes, If you do this, then you're violating the law and we'll save lives. But here's what's going to happen. He talked about the big, jacked up F-250 and 350 trucks that some people have. And those are good trucks. They're great trucks. But here's what will happen. Somebody will be driving down the road in one of those trucks, and they'll look down at their cell phone, and they'll miss a stop sign. Well, right at that moment, you'll have a lady that's going to the store to get some milk or something for her kids, and she had to reach around right before she got the stop sign and make an adjustment to one of the seat belts for the kids or the car seat, or something's going to happen in that innocent little ride, and she'll be in the middle of that intersection, and through no fault of her own, that truck is going to clobber her. And what's going to happen? These high-priced, very successful, very good insurance lawyers will get in there, and they will use that against that mother. They will inject an issue of cause, and they will make this lack of a seatbelt almost the same as the proximate cause for having this accident. When the fact is that the cause of that accident was because the person was negligent in driving the vehicle. And we shouldn't punish the people like that mother who may not have enough money to buy one of these fancy cars with one of these boxes in it that'll tell you whether or not she had her seatbelt on. The fact is that a lot of times in accidents, people may come up and they may unbuckle the seatbelt of the person that's been hurt, and then they may leave, and you can't find those people. And a lot of other states in this country have looked at this, and they've made the judgment and the determination that no, it is not right to allow that into evidence. There are 30 other states that do that. And then there are 11 other states that put limitations on the effect of that evidence. This bill does not do that at all. What this will do is it'll make these kind of cases very expensive, because now you're going to have to hire these experts, these biomechanical experts, to look at the evidence and say, well, this person was, in fact, wearing their seatbelt. It'll be the battle of the experts in the courtroom. This is a bad bill. It's changing public policy. It's been the policy of this state for decades. This bill was fully considered by the Judiciary Committee, and we decided that it was not time for it to move. And I'm going to ask this body to support my amendment, and let's be fair to all Georgians. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 56th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to thank the author of the bill for bringing this forward. I just want to address a couple of things that I had heard that I found to be a little bit inaccurate. First off, there is absolutely special interests involved in this bill. It's called the first responders of Georgia. Your police officers, your firefighters, and your emergency medical services, who are the ones that have to pull these bodies out of the car. And the reason it happens, as many of you know, is while there's a small percentage of people that don't wear their seatbelt, about 1.5%, most figures show, they cause almost half of the injuries that happen. Think about that for a second. 1.5%, almost half of the injuries. Yes, everybody's got a responsibility. You have a responsibility to wear your seatbelt, whether you caused the accident or you were a victim of the accident. And to think anything otherwise would be giving people a foolish pass. We're smarter than that. I heard somebody mention that it didn't go through the experts of judiciary. It went through the experts of public safety. And in this case, while I love all my learned attorney friends, I'm going to trust them over our trial lawyers today. And with that, I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 22nd to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. I'm in opposition to this bill and support of the amendment that was presented. And there's a couple of reasons why. And one of those is just within the bill itself, and it's the law that we have created, which provides certain exceptions to the seatbelt requirement. And in fact, we actually state on page 3 that except when occurring under those circumstances set forth in subsection C of this code section. And subsection C, of course, gives us the exceptions of those who do not have to wear a seatbelt. And so, obviously, we already differentiate now between those who have to wear a seatbelt and those who do not. But what's the difference? The difference is a $15 fine. The difference is that it's no points on your license. The difference is it's not, you can't even use not wearing a seatbelt anymore as just the sole reason to pull somebody over. So although we treat people differently within the criminal law, if you want to say that, the difference is small. But let's look at the difference here when we start talking about these type of cases. What is the difference between a person who is driving a car and it's a model pre-1965 and they have an accident, they done souped it up and they have an accident and injure somebody, or they're severely injured? You can't use the fact that they didn't have a seatbelt on. But now if you have a mom who's driving her Honda Civic and she doesn't have her seatbelt on, she then may be precluded from receiving any type of compensation because she doesn't have a seatbelt on. There's no rational reason to do that. You can say, well, we treat them differently within the law, but look at the difference. The difference is, okay, the guy in the 1965 car, he only gets a $15 fine, or he doesn't get a $15 fine. She does. That's a small difference. The difference here under this bill is gigantic. The difference here speaks to negligence, speaks to comparative negligence, speaks to causation. It's totally different. And why are we treating our citizens differently on that level? That is a huge level of difference. What is your justification for doing that? If you're driving backwards, for instance, a passenger vehicle which is driving in reverse, so if that person has an accident, has the same type of injuries, that person, you can't use that, you can't put that in. But if somebody's driving forward, oh, we're going to be able to tell the jury that they don't have a seatbelt and go to negligence and all the different things that go there. What is your rational reason for doing that? There isn't one. We have not adequately thought through the ramifications of this. We're treating our citizens differently in such tremendous ways for absolutely no reason. That is one of the main reasons why you have to be against this. But secondly, second aspect of this is when we start talking about experts and black boxes, the only people who are going to have access to all of that is going to be the defense. It's going to be your insurance companies. This isn't the world that most lawyers live in, talking about experts in an accident case. Sounds great, but in an accident case, it's usually just the person who caused the accident and the other person going to court. All of this stuff about black boxes and all these experts that are going to be hired, that's not going to be the reality. Don't think that this is some trial lawyers making all this money. These are your fellow citizens who are going to be going to court, and somebody's going to be able to use this against them, and they're going to have real injuries, and they don't have any high-priced lawyer, and they don't have any experts, and they're going to be precluded from recovery, and they're going to need that recovery. This isn't about lawyers making money and all that kind of stuff. This is about your citizens, your neighbors, who are going to be precluded from receiving compensation from their injuries. And there's no basis for doing that. And with that, I'll actually take any questions, Mr. President, if we have any.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Current posture is we're going to break for lunch at 12:30. So we've got roughly 5 minutes till 12:30. If we're able to end debate and bring a vote forward by 12:30, then so be it. We'll break for lunch and come back. If not, we'll take a recess, have lunch, and then reconvene with the rest of the debate. Chair recognizes the senator from the 46th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the interest of time, I'll keep my remarks brief just to sort of bring this into context. To begin with, the state of Georgia, our legislature has determined in our criminal code that our citizens should wear their seatbelts when they're in a vehicle. And we're doing that to protect them. It's for their own safety. Because when you're driving a vehicle, you know there's a possibility you may be in a collision. You don't wear your seatbelt because you're afraid you're going to be slung around inside of the vehicle. It's if you're in a wreck, it makes you safer to have it on. It keeps you from being thrown from a vehicle. It keeps your face from going into the windshield and being scarred for life. And it protects you from other more serious injuries. The idea here is for personal responsibility. Each person has a duty to exercise ordinary care for their own safety. Now, the crazy thing about this, why this bill is necessary, is our current rules of evidence prohibit a defendant who causes an accident from introducing evidence, from letting the jury know that the plaintiff could have avoided their injuries if they had simply followed our law and worn their seatbelt. Now, this does not prohibit a plaintiff from recovering damages even if they didn't wear their seatbelt. What's not being mentioned to you is, in addition to showing that they failed to wear the seatbelt, you would have to show that that failure is what caused or worsens your injuries. This isn't going to need expert witnesses to prove whether or not you had a seatbelt. You don't have to have a black box. The senator from the 29th was in law enforcement. When an accident report is filled out, there is a box. Was it a restrained driver or not? And it's usually because when they get to the scene, the person is either restrained in their seatbelt when they remove them from the car, or they've gotten out and they say, "Did you have your seatbelt on?" And they've admitted it right there at the scene. This is not near as complex as what you're hearing from some of the testimony here. What you're really seeing is which attorneys in this body represent plaintiffs and want to be able to get larger awards so that they can get larger fees, versus the business industry, some of the trucking folks out here that are saying, "Now wait a second, it's not fair to hold us responsible for damages that a person could have easily avoided by following Georgia's law." Let us demonstrate or introduce that evidence to the jury so we can determine what extent of the injuries were caused by their failure to wear a seatbelt. And I think of, if your face goes into the windshield and you're permanently scarred, obviously you could have avoided that by wearing your seatbelt. Most of the time, some of the doctors would tell you there's a mark across your chest if it's a significant impact where the seatbelt bruises you or scrapes you, or abrasions from that in that case. So all this is doing is leveling the playing field so that the jury can learn information as to whether or not the plaintiff, the person injured, exercised ordinary care for their own safety. The Chamber of Commerce is endorsing this, the business community is endorsing this, and it's fair play for both sides, so I encourage you to vote in favor of this bill. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. Senate will stand in recess until 1 o'clock sharp. We're going to take a 30-minute lunch. Lunch is being served in the anteroom over here. 1 o'clock sharp, we will be back to finish debate. Senate will stand in recess.